If a game features space in some way, shape, or form, it usually already has a plus in my book, but that makes it only that much more disappointing when such an amazing theme is wasted. In Adr1ft, you're an astronaut, which sounds amazing, but it's sadly not one of the good space games. Let's start by talking about the good things. Unfortunately, this will only take a minute. The visuals in this game are arguably its best feature, and they're what keep you going for the first little while. Adr1ft is built on the Unreal Engine 4. To my knowledge, this is actually the first game I've played in this engine, and they really outdid themselves with the visual presentation. The vistas of Earth are very impressive looking, and the space station itself is designed authentically, which is to say, you actually feel like you're interacting with things that were meant to function in space. The sound design as well is pretty exceptional. I'll overlook the fact that you can sometimes hear things you shouldn't really be able to, technically, because there's no air for the sound to travel through. I think the sound effects are good enough that it doesn't really matter too much. The voice acting too is very nicely done. I think I actually confused one of the voice actors for D. Bradley Baker at one point, which is a good sign because he's an amazing voice actor. I'd say the environments are indeed immersive, and that's what they advertise, and it's probably even more impressive in VR, which this game actually supports, but the immersion wears off, I think, after the first hour or two, when you suddenly realize there's nothing to do except float around from point A to point B. And that leads us into the negatives, which is, frankly, everything else. This game does an incredibly poor job relaying its narrative to you. I don't even know why the station was destroyed. I know who's responsible, but what exactly went down, I have no clue. And I don't think it's because I failed to do my due diligence as a reviewer. The game just doesn't explicitly tell you. There might be some key piece of information floating around somewhere in a branched off corridor, but frankly, when you've got as little of a story to tell as this game apparently does, you cannot afford to spread it thin to the point where people may miss it. The station is almost completely devoid of information for you to find. You learn close to nothing about any of the dead crew members, or Alex Ashima, the character you play. In fact, all I know about her after having beaten the game is that she likes to bend rules and doesn't respect the chain of command. And virtually all the other characters were nothing but very obvious narrative tools to show you instances where Alex crossed lines. I mentioned the excellent voice acting earlier. It's a shame all the characters only exist to drive home that one point. And as if that wasn't bad enough, to add insult to injury, so to speak, when you do finally find an interesting recording about a crew member talking about his problems with addiction, the game scrambles the audio so you can't hear it. And it's not as if your own character helps to give you any context to anything that's going on, because she speaks a total of 2 times during the entirety of the game. Both of those times, by the way, are when she finds 2 of her dead crew members, and all she has to say about that is their names. Give me some monologue of Alex reacting to what she finds out. Give me more environmental storytelling. I wouldn't mind learning things about the world of 2037 this game is set in, about the characters, or about what happened exactly. Most of the game is just spent in silence, and as a result, I feel like I played a game that has no writing. The game is tagged on Steam as survival, and that's actually also something they have in their product description, which I think gives you the false impression of there actually being a challenge to this game. There are no mechanics to speak of. For a supposed survival game, it takes an awfully low amount of effort to survive. You do have to use your supply of oxygen to both propel yourself and breathe. However, that's the only resource you ever have to manage, and resupply canisters are placed at pretty much every turn. Towards the very end, the game tries to make things more difficult for you by adding hazards you have to navigate around, but I wouldn't even go so far as to call those mini-games because they're not hard to complete. When you watch the trailer, you see the shiny graphics and hear very introspective piano music, and you probably think to yourself, as I did, that this game looks very promising. I'm telling you, don't mistake polish for quality. This game's teetering on the edge of being a freaking ripoff. At this point, I really feel like the term FPX is only used to cover up that this game is basically empty. The extent of the experience to be had here can just as easily be had watching a Let's Play. Unless, of course, you do actually go with VR, which, at this point, I don't think most people will. So I'm afraid I just can't recommend this to anyone. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in the next one.